Hey friends, this is Jeff. Big month for us on YouTube and Patreon. We will continue to release our best content on these platforms moving forward. Well worth subscribing to Patreon and YouTube. The links are in the show notes. And speaking of Patreon, all of our Patreon releases flow easily into your podcast feed. So once you sign up, you can simply listen to them right there on your podcast platform of choice. This November 2024, we will be posting 3 very long, like 2-3 hour long interviews with the most informed people we know about their Enneagram type. The first up is Dr. Mary Slattery, Enneagram 6. Dr. Slattery has studied Enneagram under all the most amazing thinkers and routinely elevates the hearts of 6s in ways I have heard nowhere else. Lots of clarity and wisdom, and her interview will post November 8th. Next is the Joel Stabile, talking shop about Enneagram 7s. Joel, likewise, may have more conversations with Enneagram scholars than anybody else on the planet, and he is able to articulate the heart of 7s with real insight and understanding. That will post on November 15th. And lastly is our good friend Erica Jobs. Erica had one of the very first Enneagram podcasts, and as an Enneagram 8 has sat in this material for over 10 years. Her perspective on Enneagram is different than ours, but she is also responsible for some of the real breakthroughs TJ and I have had in understanding Enneagram. This is some of our best work and will be the Patreon releases for November. Then, coming in December 2024, we are going to release the next 3 drafted chapters of our upcoming book, Around the Circle. So more than half of our new book is up online for you to digest. Again, if you sign up for a paid membership prior to January 1st, we will send you 2 signed books. In 2025, we will send you the physical published version of Around the Circle next year, as well as a signed first edition of my first book, 7. We will also answer up to 3 Enneagram questions per month for you, and you will get the sheer joy and delight of helping us help other people find and enjoy the Enneagram. That's our plug. Thanks for listening. May all good things be yours. I'm Jeff Cook.
And I'm TJ Wilson.
And this is Around the Circle.
I'm walking slowly, I'm taking my time. All I could talking is starting to rhyme. I'm letting go of lonely, letting go of strife. I just can't get enough of this beautiful life.
The Enneagram is a map of the human personality. It's a tool for navigating relationships. It creates language for what motivates us and helps us look at the way we look at everything else. Most importantly, the Enneagram's a mirror because sometimes you need help seeing yourself. My name's Jeff Cook. I'm a philosopher in Greeley, Colorado, and with me is TJ Wilson, businessman, lover of theology, and Enneagram ninja.
Hello.
My man.
Hey.
We had a 2-hour conversation with the great Joel Stabile. Joel is an Enneagram 7 and hosts the most popular Enneagram podcast in the world. We are asking 9 different experts on Enneagram 10 big questions about their type. And for your enjoyment, this is a sample of that discussion. Check it out. And if you want the full deep dive into 7s because you love 7s or are a 7, go to our Patreon page, which is linked in the show notes. And with that, we are starting off with question number 3.
Commonly 5, 6s, and 7s are associated as experiencing an underlying feeling of fear, but a lot of us don't actually see that. Is that true of you?
That's one of those things that I didn't know that fear was a motivator for me until the light was shown on it.
Yeah.
I've heard, I won't get this exactly right, but whether it's fear, shame, or anger, but let's say with fear for 5, 6, and 7, that like one number internalizes it, one externalizes it, and the other one forgets that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the forget that it's there.
Yeah.
And I think the magic of the Enneagram, and for me, and with me personally being 7, like there's not fear in the future. Like, why would the future be a scary place? Why won't it be this thing that I'm going to make it? Why won't it be, how are you going to do on your oh, how's the vacation gonna go? It's gonna be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have a great time on the vacation. How's the birthday gonna go? How's the school year gonna go? Whatever. The marriage. Like, it's gonna be great. Like, what's there to be afraid of? This is gonna go great. And because of that, hopeful, it's not even, like we said earlier, like with lemons, like I don't need lemons, just what is life going to give me, and I'll make the best out of it. There's nothing but hope for the future, and that's where my head is. I was sharing in a talk today with Suzanne. I was like, man, I don't think I would enjoy being an Olympian, because when I would be at the Olympics, I'd already be gone from the Olympics. Like, we're there for 2 weeks. Well, after I did my event, it's not I'm here in Paris, and I would still do that stuff, but I'd already be like, what's waiting for me after this week is over.
Sure.
And that's how I am with everything. If we go on a vacation to Colorado for 5 days, day 3, I'm already mentally in the next week, and then the next week doesn't suck. Like, there's nothing to be rid of. Is like, because if this is going to happen, it's going to happen. And if it's, and I abused this quote in an unhealthy way for a long time. I thought it was just so great. It was from the show Scrubs. Are y'all fans of that show? The janitor is talking to Elliot, and she asks him some sort of question, and he's like, here's the thing that my dad or whoever said, something like that. Time spent worrying is time wasted. And 7s need to have some healthy worry.
Right.
And an unhealthy 7 doesn't have any worry. It's this, what will be, and everything will be fine, and whatever. And it's that forgetting, but that's fear driven, and 7s, and we don't know that. I didn't know that until it was pointed out, and honestly, outside of like, I don't know how somebody finds that out, because it took actual therapy and not day 1 of therapy, like a lot of therapy, the whole, I swear to you, I thought, I almost turned around. I was like, why is my kid falling around?
I have a question for you on this. I strongly resonate with the idea that some of the types will forget that the underlying feeling is there. I think in the back of my mind is a diagram. I think I saw this in Riso and Hudson's book, that was, in essence, what 5s are doing they are fearing what's out there. 7s are fearing what's inside, and the energy then pushes them outward, away from what they fear might be internal. Does that resonate with you at all?
I'm not sure. The answer is I'm not sure. I think I probably have to think on it some more.
I suppose I associate that with the feeling repression side of what I would understand to be 7s is I'm gonna avoid negative emotions and the rest. I don't know if fear would be a worthy word for avoiding that, but
I think this might be the answer, or this might be an answer. When I first started learning about the Enneagram, so Suzanne had probably been teaching already for 30 years or something, and I finally started paying attention. But I was like, 6 and 7s next to each other doesn't make any sense. How could a 7 have a 6 swing? Okay, none of this makes any sense. And then I learned about the 2 subtypes of 6s, of phobic and counterphobic. And then I got to thinking about it as I started reflecting on my own life and my own choices. And I asked her one day, I was like, is it possible for a 7 to have a counterphobic 6 wing? And she's like, yeah, absolutely. I was like, well, then that, I think people who cared to think about it, which was probably just my parents, probably, thought that I had an 8 wing. But as I started learning about it and learning about fear and the counterphobic behavior of 6, I was like, I think I've always had a really, really big counterphobic wing, because I've done a lot of things in my life that I was maybe afraid to do, or maybe even thought I shouldn't do or something, but wouldn't give it. But I chose to do it because I couldn't face myself. I couldn't let the fear win. So I've been afraid, and that those are the things that were like on top, like at the surface, like that came up to the surface of this is a scary thing. And then I was like, we're doing it, or we're not going to be scared. And with that whole, we're not going to be scared, it's almost, it's setting the fear and whatever feelings that go with that, that the fear is covering up, to the side, and then pushing forward, and then pushing forward past that. So it's, I'm not afraid of heights, or maybe I am. I wouldn't know based on what I'm saying. But there's a thing as a kid that as a younger junior high school student, that like pulls you up, and it's like the bungee, it's almost like a free fall thing.
Yeah.
I didn't I wanted to do it, but I also knew the height thing was a big deal. But somebody else wanted to do it, and I was like, and they didn't want to do it by themselves. And
there it is, your perfect in.
There we go. So I was like, all right, I'm your guy. I'm gonna do it with you. I didn't want to do it at all. And then as it started going up, I was like, I super don't want to do this. We're only like 40 feet up. And now I'm like, this is awful. But no one knew that besides me. And as we went up and up, and then when it was over, I felt, and I think this is what sevens do, we justify whatever on the back end. So when it was over, instead of, man, you didn't want to do that. You're, like we said, you're not in charge of this person's joy, this person's happiness.
Yeah.
I don't know, but maybe this is, but I think we reframe it of like, see, you did fine. This person, your buddy had fun.
Yeah.
You went with him. You get to check off another experience. The two of y'all did it, and so on. And guess what? Like, I haven't been on a single ride ever again since then in 25 years. So I think that's my relationship with fear is, I unfortunately don't acknowledge it often enough when it presents itself. And then when it does present itself, maybe I don't respect it. And therefore, then I make decisions.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah, I think that it's nice that this comes immediately after talking about the underlying feeling and it's nice that this immediately comes after talking about like that head center issue and like logic being sort of the thing that drives most things, because I think that a lot of sevens learned very young how to logic their way out of fear.
Oh yeah.
And so the place where fear exists, they've already they've preempted getting away from that fear, right? And so even the places where you do have to experience fear, you logic your way around what the fear did to you, and like being raised up really high in this thing to go on this ride. Like there's a great element of like facing your fears in this, but there's also that reframing and the positive reframing behind it of the, like, this was for this purpose, and now I'm glad that I checked that box off.
Yeah, and none of it, and to really hit it home that it's in your head, none of it's gut. And that was the other thing that I said when I was like, people, what's your wing? Eights are in that gut center. I got no gut. I have none. And I honestly, I've said that recently, where I was like, I need to learn from people how to listen to and trust, not your heart. Again, it sounds sappy to say your heart. Like that just really, I vomit in my mouth. Trust your heart. That's not that's not even what I'm asking. But that trust your gut. Like, how do you have gut instinct? Because I don't. It's all head.
Yeah.
Do you not experience that in stress at some level? That in stress, I mean, I would want to spell out, I suppose, how I experience my intuitional side, but is there an access point there?
I'm trying to think about a time recently that I felt that I've been in the healthy side of some stress. I'll say this. I'll talk to the average to unhealthy. For me is that I don't, but it's because it's all clouded with anger or hurt
Right.
and doing.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So when there's something going on, when I'm frustrated, when I'm upset, when I'm hurt, when I'm angry, whether it's between, and I'll just keep it in my household, I'm having a hard time with my ex-wife or with Whitney or with the kids or with my job. Whitney knows that it's happening because I'm doing a lot of stuff and not talking,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm kind of, I think the definition would be brooding. Is
Sure.
that the word?
Yeah.
Where, and all that's happening, but none of that's gut. It is, my head can't fix this. Thinking about and planning and all any of the gifts or tools that I just have on board automatically in my day-to-day life aren't gonna solve this problem.
Right.
And I basically filibuster with vacuuming, doing laundry, cleaning the pool until I come to grips with, you're gonna have to do something different to resolve this issue. But then that's still all ahead. It's a
Mm-hmm.
cycle.
Yep.
It's here's the stressor. Now you're brooding and doing, and nothing. And at the lowest, everyone else in the world is messing up.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
So why is this laundry still here? Why is this all filthy?
Mm-hmm.
What, like, everyone else is messing up.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing all that instead of the focus on what is actually the problem, which is my problem with whatever the subject may be.
Sure.
So honestly, the high side, the healthier side for me is that cycle lasts like 2 minutes instead of 2 days.
Mm, sure.
And then I do think that is a good thing for me, is when that cycle goes quicker. I don't know. I don't, I don't know. I've heard that 3 6s and 9s kind of move along that 3 6 9 train more than other numbers. I can't stay in low or mid or high one space. That's not a thing for me. That's not a conscious choice. But I can catch myself. The quicker I catch myself going to that stress space, the quicker I can go back to the high side and correct. Not, there's only two options. I think it's either, for me now in my life, it's go back from that stress space and in a healthy manner address the issue, or it's you go back and move on as if it didn't happen.
Right.
And hopefully it's the former.
It's a good place to transition to repressed centers. We can keep with stance, but I'm phrasing repressed areas as, why do I feel out of balance? And I'm actually hearing that in the language is, there's a recognition I'm kind of lacking in this particular space. So 3 7s, 8s are be repressed in their feeling center. And I think that you've said quite a bit on these friends throughout, but is there anything more to say here about sevens and feeling?
For me, repressed feelings, and for me, and I don't know if this is all sevens, but it's twofold. My feelings are repressed, and my recognition of your feelings are repressed. And so then when I started getting into Enneagram work, I felt like that was too much to bite off, and relationships were becoming important to me. And so what I opted to do was, okay, well, I need to acknowledge other people's feelings. That needs to carry water. That needs to be important to me. So I did that, and that helped some, but it was a drop in the bucket as far as everything goes.
Right.
It didn't solve problems. It didn't.
Mm-hmm.
It made less of a fool out of me. I think that's the best way to put it. And so by acknowledging other people's feelings, that was a first step. And I thought it would be this huge leap, and ended up, it wasn't a huge leap.
Sure. Yeah.
It was just one tiny step for Joel. But the leap that and I think we all sevens will have to, that's why for saying, stance work, it's your lifelong work. You're never gonna complete that leap, is because I've got to work on daily bringing my feelings to the table.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's one thing. So if I'm talking about me and Whitney's relationship or me and my kids, acknowledging their feelings is great.
Right.
But to be in a relationship, you have to also bring your feelings to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really, 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 really super, really hard for me.
Yeah.
Are y'all fans of that show Letterkenny by any chance?
I have seen a lot of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. Love it so much. And the main character, Wayne, there's one where he, on the episode that's National Women's Day, he talks about his sister who's very close to, and like he can't, like he's standing and talking to the side, and Whitney goes, "Oh my gosh, that's what you do," because he would go, and he's like trying to compose himself, and so he coughs.
Yeah.
And she's like, "You literally do that. You, not the power posture and turning to the side,
Right.
but when when emotions come up in me, my first inclination and second through 10th is you go and choke that off. And, you know, and that's really hard for me. I don't know and it's not a manly thing. Like this isn't a 1940s men don't cry or something like that. It's just not.
Joel doesn't cry. That's, yeah.
Well, here's what it is. For me, it's not necessary. Right here.
Mm-hmm.
Me crying doesn't, or me being emotional is not gonna, and this is where I say this a lot to the kids, and I say it sometimes when I think it's helpful, and I think I say it sometimes when, unfortunately, it's not helpful. And I'm like, is crying getting you what you wanted? Are your feelings right now, is it achieving what you wanted? And I'm certain I say that too often.
Sure.
And I'm equally certain I say it sometimes when it's appropriate.
Well, because it within that feeling repression place, it also means that having feelings requires the feelings to accomplish something, and that's just plain not what feelings are for.
What are they for?
For feeling. That's it.
Feelings for the sake of feelings.
Yeah, that's the point of feelings is to feel it.
You can see where I'm at on my journey. That this is most triggering part of the conversation for me.
This is my favorite question that I've heard this month. Is what is the point of feelings? Like, just is there a utility here?
To feel them. Yeah, it's part of how we're connected to each other.
I do understand the word cathartic, like a good cry can, and I get that, but that's a thing in this is all unhealthy 7. That sounds like a thing for solitude. You do that when you're by yourself.
Sure.
You get, and I've done that where I've like leaned into it. Like instead of repress the thought or repress the memory. When my uncle died, this is a tip of the iceberg of a story. When my favorite uncle died, when I was in rehab, and I couldn't go to the funeral because everyone thought it was best for me that he would want you to be here. He knows you loved him, and so on. And so then I've got to grieve his death, and I don't know how to grieve. And I'm sober for the first time in God knows how long, and I'm by myself. Yeah. That cry was deep. Like there was afterwards I didn't feel better. I mean, I felt different, and then I went to group and crossed my arms and so on. Yeah. I know I have got, and clearly any listener can be like, that my dude's got a lot of work to do around feeling.
But it's not even just you. It's like 7s in general who are farthest away from that feeling center and like have the extra added thing of like not having any real way to connect to it. There's just like always being in the future, always being in the head. There's so much about how 7s experience and exist in the world that is not fully connected to that feeling center. And it's not because of something that Joel did in his life. It's because of sevens. Like, it's sevenness lives here.
One of the things when, as y'all know, like Suzanne's mentor, Suzanne's my Enneagram person in my ear. And, and hers was Richard Rohr. And when she was starting to learn the Enneagram and she's like, I think I'm ready. I think I've understood a lot and, going to start working with some small groups. And he's like, gave her tips and pointers about, certain numbers when you talk to him about this. And he told her, and y'all stop me if you've heard this before, but he told her, he's like, the sevens in the group, ask them about like their childhood and they'll have like a sad story. They'll have a sad story or something to tell. And she's like, what? Okay. And so she did it. And in this group, she says there was like these 3 men. And I won't tell all the stories, but each one, she's like, how was your childhood? And all of them started with, and this is what sevens do. They all started with, it was great.
Yeah.
Sevens, no matter what, Luke, our buddy Luke, said this perfectly. He's like, just because I open with a joke or I open with something light doesn't mean there's not stuff coming behind.
And
That's just the getting the foot in the door. And I honestly, I know I do that with the Enneagram journey. So I don't know if y'all ever, the opening,
sure,
like show clips,
sure.
Yep.
and the way we actually do the podcast of we just talk and and then we get to the harder stuff and the deeper stuff. But sevens just open with it's all good or everything's fine or a joke before you can get to the things. And all these guys said, oh, my childhood was great. But then they all three, hearing this story retold, it was something really traumatic what they shared. and mine. So when she asked me on the side later, asked a question, I was like, well, I guess mine, when my biological father took me to Hurricane Harbor, back when it was called Hurricane Harbor, he lost me and left me. Like I came out as a little tiny kid. I came out of the slide and no one was there. And like I had to find a cop. And then I spent the entire day like at the, little spot. But like I don't tell that story as I didn't tell that story. And even now, my memory is not this tragic, sad memory of a day. It was, they showed me the cop stand and I had a good day and,
got a hot dog. It was behind the scenes and
yeah. And I think that's what you're talking to of like sevens. And y'all mentioned that. I think y'all kind of alluded to this phenomenon earlier. I think it was Jeff, you maybe, but that sevens think their way out, especially as kids, because that's the gift that they have. That's their defense mechanism. And they think their way out of pain. And that doesn't work as you get older. That's childish behavior as you get older.
when I was talking about like the fear of things inside, I suppose that's why I was trying to put my thumb on, and maybe that's too that language doesn't necessarily work. But there's clearly an aversion. Yeah, and paired with I think what was said real early on, where you were like, when I first meet somebody, it's the question is, are we gonna have a good time together? Because if not, I'm moving on. And so I assume that that's the case, that's how you would think other people see you. So the opening joke, we're doing some stuff, we're connecting. And so you're not going to be that guy that brings the party down.
Yeah. And I swear to you, when you just said a second ago, you said fear aversion. And I'm thinking ahead of like, okay, what might the next question be? And in my head, I automatically was like, all right, I honestly, I think this is true. If like I was in the woods and I come across a bear, I'm like, one of two things is about to happen here. I'm about to survive an effing bear. And now I've got that. Now I've got that on my resume. I get to, or I'm going to die.
Yeah. And then everyone will get the experience of being able to say out loud, Joel was killed by a bear.
That sounds about right. we knew something would get him one day. So it was a bear. The bear is what got him. And like again, in none of that is there a healthy fear of a bear.
Either way, there's going to be a fantastic story that's going to bring joy to the hearts of my friends.
How prophetic if I go that way, by the way, now. Like this will live in infamy of the time.
We do have bears in Colorado if it were the case that you moved.
You're talking about moving here.
Right.
I've never seen them in Greeley, but I've seen them in Colorado Springs.
Might have to do, maybe this is subconsciously with my love fest for Legends of the Fall. So
Come on.
We're going to wrap here. Again, the full conversation with Joel is on our Patreon, where we talk about problem solving, how sevens connect with others, and what adventures alone mean. And there are at least 3 stories about Suzanne Stabile there that you have never heard before. So jump over, grab a membership. Lots of good stuff being uploaded each month. The link is in the show notes. And my friends, may all good things be yours.